So there's this new investigation out there, and whoa, does it make an explosive claim. It's arguing that one of the wealthiest movements in modern Christianity is actually built on a 160-year-old deception. We're going to break down the book The Greatest Fraud Ever Preached to really get a handle on its core argument and the evidence it claims connects private jets all the way back to a 19th century hypnotist. Let's dive in.
Right out of the gate, the investigation hits you with this powerful image, and it really frames the whole controversy. You've got private jets and mansions on one side, and they're being funded by the sacrifices of the poorest believers on the other. This visual tension, this contrast, is the jumping-off point for everything else.
And that leads to the central mystery the book tries to solve. Now, the leaders of the movement will tell you that its teachings are rooted deep in the Bible. But this investigation, it alleges a totally different origin story, one that's way more recent and, they claim, has absolutely nothing to do with Scripture.
To even begin to understand how this movement grew into a multi-billion-dollar empire, the book argues you first have to take apart the specific ideas, the actual doctrines that it's built on.
The book basically boils it all down to these 5 core pillars. The idea that faith isn't just a belief, but a tangible physical force, that you can literally speak things into existence with positive confession, and that perfect health and massive wealth aren't just things to hope for, but they are guaranteed for believers. It even gets into the teaching that followers can achieve a little God status. So these are the specific ideas the investigation sets out to trace back in time.
And here we go. This is where the book makes its most startling claim. It basically challenges the entire official history of the movement and proposes a completely different and way more controversial family tree. This slide right here really gets to the heart of the conflict. The public story is that these teachings are biblical, straight from the original source. But the book alleges, nope, they actually come from 19th century American metaphysical movements. Think mind over matter groups, and specifically from what it calls a hypnotist's parlor.
The investigation actually pinpoints an alleged patient zero for the whole thing, a 19th century clockmaker named Phineas Quimby. And get this, he wasn't a pastor or a theologian, he was a practitioner of mesmerism, which was kind of like a precursor to hypnotism, and he was developing all these theories about mind cure.
So how in the world did the ideas of a 19th century clockmaker supposedly end up on global television networks? Well, the book lays out what it calls an unbroken chain of influence, passed down from teacher to student, generation after generation.
Let's just walk through this alleged lineage. It starts in the 1860s with Quimby. His student, Mary Baker Eddy, founds Christian Science. Then her student, Emma Curtis Hopkins, reportedly adds the crucial prosperity upgrade. Decades later, a man named E.W. Kenyon is said to have repackaged these New Thought ideas for a Christian audience. And finally, here's the kicker. The book claims that in the 1960s, Kenneth Hagin, often called the father of the modern movement, plagiarized Kenyon's work, and boom, that's what launched the version we see all over the world today.
Now, if you're going to make a claim that bold, you better have some receipts, right? Well, the book tries to build its case on 2 main pillars: direct, side-by-side textual comparisons that allege plagiarism, and a forensic look at the money trail.
And let's be super clear about this. The book's central accusation against key figures in this chain is plagiarism. We're not just talking about sharing similar ideas. We're talking about the alleged lifting of entire phrases and concepts without giving any credit.
This is what the book presents as its smoking gun. It puts writings from E.W. Kenyon and the later teachings of Kenneth Hagin right next to each other. And the phrases, like "what I confess I possess," are, well, they're identical. This is the direct textual evidence the author uses to argue that there's an unbroken and allegedly plagiarized chain of doctrine.
The investigation argues that this isn't just 1 or 2 instances. It's a pattern that's been repeated for over 160 years. The same core metaphysical concepts, just passed down and given a new coat of paint for each new generation.
So, beyond tracing the ideas, the book's second pillar is all financial. It follows the money. It traces fundraising techniques like seed faith offerings and uses public records, parliamentary disclosures, and even whistleblower leaks to try and map the growth of these huge tax-exempt empires. So after laying out all the historical claims, the alleged plagiarism, and the money trail, you'd think the book would just declare a final verdict. But it actually stops short. Instead, it turns the decision over to you, the reader.
The author is really clear about their role here. They state, "I am not a judge and this is not a courtroom. The stated goal is just to present documented sources and public records, not to force anyone to a particular conclusion."
So the book ends with a direct challenge. Hey, don't just take my word for it. It's a call to do your own investigation. Read the original materials yourself. Compare the quotes side by side. Follow the public money trail. Listen to what both defenders and critics have to say, and only then should you decide for yourself.
And it even points you toward the evidence, a lot of which is actually in the public domain. It suggests looking at things like court filings, government disclosures, and the original writings of every single person in that alleged chain of transmission, from Quimby all the way to today's televangelists.
So that's the argument from the greatest fraud ever preached, a detailed and, you have to admit, a deeply controversial alternative history. By placing the primary sources and public records on the table, it ultimately leaves the most important question not with the author, but with you. The evidence has been presented. What will you conclude?